The desert wind clawed across Ridge 47 like it had something to prove, hot, abrasive, filled with dust and judgment. Heat shimmered off rust-colored rocks, and the sun hung overhead like a sniper scope, always watching. Riley Quinn lay prone behind a jagged sandstone outcrop, her cheek pressed to the faded leather cheek pad of a battered M40 sniper rifle. The bolt action creaked just faintly as she nudged it into place. The scope was scratched, her boots mismatched, and her limp had kicked up a cloud of sarcasm ever since she limped off the chopper that morning. Sergeant Brody's voice still echoed in her ears. Dead weight. Favor to command. Watch the ridge and stay out of our way. She hadn't flinched, just nodded once and limped toward the overlook without saying a word. Recon 6 didn't want her, didn't need her, or so they thought. Now, crouched in the dust, she scanned the horizon with calm, precise sweeps. A mirage danced in the far heat haze, nothing more. Her finger hovered over the safety. The sand was still. The comms had gone down 2 hours ago. The team was restless, snapping at each other like dogs left too long in a cage. They'd taken shelter behind a half-buried convoy, trying to patch in contact for extraction. Riley had been left alone with the ridge and the wind and the growing weight of everything she didn't say. From below, the banter started again. She heard Jenkins cackle too loud, too forced. $10 says she calls for backup before dinner. 10? Nah, someone else replied. She probably doesn't even know how to turn the damn radio on. A pause. A laugh. Maybe she'll shoot herself by mistake. That'd be something. The rest of the unit cracked up. Boots scuffed in the dirt. A bottle cap rattled against stone. Riley adjusted her scope. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her left hand curled tighter around the forestock, but her breathing stayed even, measured. She whispered, almost too low for even herself to hear. Eyes open. You're still in this. Her position wasn't great elevated, but with no real cover. Just a few rocks and the brittle illusion of being forgotten. But that was the advantage, too. No one expected much from her. No one was watching her back. No one had assigned her anything beyond, stay out of our way. They didn't know she'd fired this rifle with her heart hammering from blood loss, that she'd nailed a moving target in fog with one eye swollen shut. That she'd learned under someone they only knew from stories. That her limp wasn't weakness, it was proof she'd stood her ground when others ran. Still, she said nothing. Just turned the scope ring with slow, precise clicks and kept her breathing timed to the wind. The sand shifted below. The banter drifted away. Somewhere behind the ridge, something caught her attention, a flicker, too controlled to be nature, too still to be rock. Her eyes narrowed behind the scratched lens. Her finger curled, not to shoot, but to steady, to wait. They thought she was dead weight. But dead weight doesn't aim this steady. And dead weight doesn't hum with the kind of silence that kills. The sound came like a whip crack through bone-dry air, sharp, sudden, wrong. It tore the heat-stilled silence into ribbons. At 1,600 hours, the first sniper round hit a rusted fuel drum 2 feet from Jenkins, sending a metallic scream ricocheting across the camp. The second shot followed instantly, chewing through a pack radio. The third hit flesh. Someone screamed. The fourth silenced them. Recon 6 broke like glass under boot. Men dove behind crates, flipped tables, scrambled for what little cover the broken desert gave them. Radios clicked uselessly. Static. Dead lines. The long-range antenna they'd jury-rigged earlier was lying in 3 charred pieces next to the comms tent. No signal, no help. Sniper in the Windist Ridge, a voice barked from below. Probably Vega. His voice always cracked when he was scared. But Riley had already seen it. 2 hours ago, she'd spotted a shine sunlight glinting off something too smooth. Not metal from a supply crate, not a mirage, something polished, purposeful. That's what made her shift her sight eastward again. Now, through the lens of her aging scope, the desert unfolded like a map drawn in blood and dust. She saw the high ridge to the far east, just a curve of earth to the untrained eye. But the way the rock bulged upward gave them line of sight. Elevated position, wind advantage, hidden sun to their backs. 4 shooters. She marked them by their stillness. Not movement, but the absence of it. In a sea of flickering heat and swaying brush, they were too still. One leaned against a rock with a mounted bipod. Another crouched low, scanning. The third lay flat, good position, but poor shadow discipline. The fourth was the spotter. Binocular glint caught her eye for a fraction of a second. That was all she needed. Her hand moved to the radio clipped to her vest. She pressed the button. Ridge to base team. You're compromised. 4 shooters, elevated arc, East Ridge. 1,200 yards. A pause. Then static gave way to Brody's voice. Strained, angry, breathless. Where the hell are they coming from? Riley's voice didn't change. Calm, even. Crosswinds shifting. I've got 1 shot. The radio hissed. Then Brody's bitter laugh short, cruel. You? With what? That museum piece? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her fingers were already sliding around into the chamber. The bolt slid home with a soft, mechanical clack that echoed in her bones. Her cheek pressed into the rifle's stock, eyes settling behind the cracked scope. She breathed in, slow, held, waited. The wind tickled her cheek from the left, whispering changes. Dust swirled over her boot. Time slowed. Down below, chaos still reigned. Vega was dragging someone. Jenkins fired wildly at nothing. Brody barked orders that no one followed. But up on the ridge, the world narrowed. A rifle, a breath, a heartbeat. The wind shifted one last time. And Riley Quinn waited for stillness. The moment before the shot was quieter than death. No laughter, no wind. Even the desert seemed to hold its breath. Riley's finger curled against the trigger, slow and certain. She didn't blink. Didn't flinch. The old M40 pressed into her shoulder like a familiar ghost. Her breath slowed to nothing. Then she fired. The crack rolled across Ridge 47 like a gavel slamming down at the end of a trial. Final. Clean. A sharp report that cut through the shouts and cursing and fear below. The bullet moved like it had been born for that moment, precise, riding the wind with eerie grace. Across 1,200 yards of heat shimmer and chaos, it found its mark. The eastern shooter dropped. No drama, no slow motion, just a body folding at the spine, lifeless, as if the string holding him upright had been cut by something invisible. His spotter froze for half a second too long, then threw himself down the slope, scrambling like a kicked rat. The other 2 didn't wait. Dust plumed where their knees hit the sand, their heads ducked low as they fled east back into whatever hole they'd crawled out of. And just like that, the battlefield shifted. Down below, confusion bloomed into opportunity. The men of Recon 6 hesitated, shock written across their faces. Then someone barked, "They're moving, go." Brody led the push. His boots slammed over crates and bodies, his rifle hot in his hands. He didn't say Riley's name, he didn't need to. The direction of his glance gave it away. Eyes up. Toward the ridge. Toward her. Riley was already loading her second round. Hands steady, practiced, her motions smooth and silent. She didn't look triumphant, she looked tuned in. As if her heartbeat still hadn't resumed, as if she was part of the rifle itself. Across the base, the command tent exploded with voices. "What just happened?" a tech shouted over the static. "Did we get air support?" "No," someone snapped. "No friendly fire logs." "Then who took the damn shot?" the lieutenant barked, slamming his tablet onto a folding table. "I want a name." The feed from a surveillance drone flickered onto a monitorist ridge, high elevation, one static heat signature prone behind rock. The camera zoomed in, tan fatigues, slim build. A bolt-action rifle with a long, weather-worn barrel, glasses glinting in the light. Someone whispered, "Is that Quinn?" Brody didn't speak. He was already vaulting the last line of cover, moving the team to flank where the ambushers had been. but his eyes those didn't lie. For half a second, as he reloaded behind a burnt-out ATV, he glanced up, past the smoke, past the shimmering heat. There she was, still kneeling, still scanning. Riley Quinn, the dead weight, the favor to command, the quiet shadow they all dismissed, now calmly loading another round as if she hadn't just turned the tide. The ridge didn't echo the shot, but the silence that followed screamed loud enough for the whole desert to hear. The sky bled orange and bruised purple as the sun dipped behind the jagged hills, casting Ridge 47 in long, creeping shadows. The heat had finally broken, replaced by the bite of desert cold that crept into bone. Down below, the battered remains of Recon 6 were lined up near a scorched vehicle, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt, their bodies stiff from crouching too long behind cover. The tension hadn't faded, it had just sunk deeper, coiled under their skin like a leftover charge from a storm that hadn't fully passed. Rotor blades whipped the air into a frenzy. The extraction chopper thundered in from the west, its spotlight sweeping across the battlefield, illuminating bullet-pocked crates, overturned comm gear, and trails of dried blood that led nowhere. The ramp dropped with a hiss, and boots hit the sand. The captain stepped out first, tall, no nonsense, the kind of man whose eyes missed nothing. "Status," he barked. Brody stepped forward, stiff-backed, jaw tight. "Recon 6, 6 accounted for, 2 wounded, 1 fatality." The captain's eyes swept the horizon, then narrowed toward the east ridge. Who took out the nest? Silence. It hung there, heavy, like dust before a storm. No one moved. Brody's mouth twitched, but he didn't speak. Jenkins looked at his boots. Vega pretended to check his mag. Then, from the back of the group, a quiet voice cleared its throat. "Sir." It was her. Everyone turned. The voice belonged to Private Ash, barely out of training, still green behind the ears. His hand shook slightly as he pointed. "Riley Quinn, she saved us." All heads swiveled toward the ridge. There, alone and still, Riley sat cross-legged in the cold. Her rifle lay across her lap, and she was running a rag over the scope, slow and methodical. Her breath came in soft clouds. Her glasses had fogged slightly, but she didn't wipe them. She didn't need to see them look, she already knew. No one said anything, not a word of thanks, not a sorry, just quiet. Later that week, her file was flagged in Command Intel. A junior analyst tried to match her credentials against the marks left on the Predator drone casing. Ballistics matched. Technique matched. A note was scribbled in red across the edge of her record. "Trained under Ghost Viper. Confirm legacy status." Another line followed beneath it, circled twice. "Recommend reassignment to NATO Long Range Division. Immediate." By morning, the order came through. Brody opened the envelope while still nursing a busted rib and a bruised ego. He read it once, then twice, then folded it and stared at the tent wall like something behind it was laughing at him. They had left her on the ridge, had written her off as charity, as nothing. But Riley Quinn wasn't nothing. She was the girl who'd stayed quiet through their jokes, who hadn't complained when they shoved her aside, who didn't brag when she pulled the trigger that turned the tide. Now she was gone, transferred, reassigned. But her name lingered on the ridge like the echo of that one impossible shot. And none of them would forget it. Not anymore.